All right. It is the inaugural episode of The Beard and the Bookie. I think it's pretty evident which one of us is the Beard and the Bookie. But in case it hasn't been established, the Beard is on that side. That is Josh. I am the Bookie end of this show. My name is Dan. And so this is the show. It is our first episode, something we've been talking about here for a few weeks. We were trying to time up when to start it. Full disclosure, we originally were going to do the inaugural episode with the last UFC fight, but kind of lost a little bit of its luster. So we backed the kind of pumped the brakes on that. And here we are now. So Josh, but other than that, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm great. It's a fantastic week. Football's back. You know how excited I am for that. That means college football's right around the corner. Just, man, awesome time to be alive. Corona's not messing things up yet. I'm excited, dude.
It is true. We can do this and not even have to wear masks through the screen.
I know. So exciting.
That's a bonus. So let's get started. As you said, football is back, so we can talk about football. And with football comes Hard Knocks, because everybody loves Hard Knocks, even despite the fact that it is the Cowboys on Hard Knocks. And Josh, I know you. We both watched Hard Knocks. We both said a lot during Hard Knocks. I know you want to talk about the very special relationship between Dak and Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, man. That really was the highlight of the episode for me in two parts. So I'll start with the first part. The fact that Zeke was using a YouTube video to learn how to wrap that present really made me feel like he's an everyday guy. Like, oh, thank God, I'm not the only one that has to do that. Pro athletes don't even know how to wrap presents. Kudos to him. Made me feel a lot better as a man. I appreciate that. Secondly, that bag, man. I mean, they've got a special relationship, and I can appreciate that. I mean, as a veteran myself, I talked about it with my guys this week. Oof. Oh, go ahead.
What was more, I guess, surprising? The fact that Zeke would buy Dak the bag, or the fact that Dak knew exactly what it was before he opened the box?
No, I think it was the buying of the bag, honestly. I think like Dak knew. He's like, oh, did you give me that bag we talked about? It's like they had the conversation ahead of time. So I feel like he knew going into it, you know. So I think it was the fact that for every one of us watching, it's like, you got the man a travel bag? Like that's what you get your starting quarterback? Like, okay.
You know. So two things that I want to talk about from Hard Knocks, one on the funny side and one on the serious side. We'll go with the funny side first. Is we cannot not talk about the Mojo thing. It's impossible to have watched that first episode and not talk about Mike McCarthy's Mojo moment, or whatever the heck he was trying to come up with. I don't think I've heard Mojo used that much since the Austin Powers movie came out. But I mean, when you look at Mike McCarthy, he doesn't scream Mojo.
Well, I mean, the guy's got enough mojo to get signed by the Dallas Cowboys on a lie, mind you, saying he had reviewed every piece of game film and every piece of game tape from the Cowboys the previous year. I mean, that's a mojo moment in itself to pull that over Jerry Jones.
Well, I think Jerry Jones was just trying to get a name. I mean, that's what Jerry does. By the way, did you see Jerry eating that breakfast sandwich and all the salt he put on that thing on a plate that probably cost 10 times 100 times what the breakfast sandwich did?
Hey, man, when you have that much money, you can eat what you want. I have no complaints. It was a bit of a shock, but
that was the boss move.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he was. I think he ate salt with a side of breakfast sandwich, not vice versa.
For real.
On the serious note, which is an issue that still is going on here, we see the beginning of this Dak Prescott injury. And only in Hard Knocks can they make Mike McCarthy look like the intelligent one on this Cowboys coaching staff, because I guess the physician or trainer or whoever goes to McCarthy and tells him that Dak had issues warming up throwing the football and that they're going to shut him down from throwing. And then Dak is still out there at practice. McCarthy asks, why is he out here? The trainer says, because he wants to be. And McCarthy goes, well, don't you think it would probably be a smart idea that instead of him being out here doing nothing, we probably start treatment? And they were like, well, if you want to. Yeah, I kind of want to.
Yeah.
So they go ahead,
sorry.
they do that. And, to this point, Dak hasn't thrown. He missed the preseason game, and he's still getting MRIs. So as much as the Cowboys try and downplay this, I have a problem downplaying the fact that your quarterback can't throw a football at the moment.
Yeah, when I first started watching that and they were talking about the metrics and how he was overworking himself and everything, I was like, oh, okay, like I can see why you'd want him to take it easy. But then immediately I went to, that man's the starting quarterback. He was out all last year. Good luck. Like, good luck telling him to slow down or to rest or to try and recuperate and heal that injury. And we saw what happens when he didn't. Like, he went out there, he was stubborn, still trying to compete for reps. Fair play to him with DiNucci as your backup. Like, not going to get much out of him. So you kind of want to get in there and get your first teamer some quality reps. So I get it, but we are seeing that he potentially could have an injury that could plague him the entire year if he doesn't heal it right. So all in all, at the end of the day, like, there's cause for concern. I can tell you my fantasy football league today, Dak went in the later rounds than he should have, and it's mainly because of that injury concern now. So it's going to affect him on multiple levels. So I'm just kind of anxious to see where it goes from here.
It's just a situation in which even the Cowboys Twitter, who's running that, like, hey, not a big deal, no cause for concern, but Dak's getting a second MRI. Yeah, that's a cause for concern. You can downplay that as much as you want. It's a cause for concern. It's going to raise eyebrows. Okay, so whoever's running the Twitter, bad job. Sorry, we don't like it. So this was the first full week of preseason. The last game, so to speak, was today. Week of preseason.
Yeah, so first week of preseason, rough. Rough start, especially for me as a Vikings fan. Not pretty, bro. Like 33-6. We didn't play any starters, granted, but rough for me on a personal level. Looking at a lot of the teams around the league, rookie quarterbacks looked really good. Wilson didn't look bad. Mac Jones looked pretty good, sadly, because I can't stand the Patriots. But, Mac Jones is an Alabama boy, so I got to support him. Justin Fields seemed confident, looked good. That's good news for the Bears, bad news for me. Everybody looks solid. It's good so far overall. Didn't see really any major injuries other than the Dak situation. But I guess as far as first weeks go in a shortened preseason, we kind of got what we expected. Had some good games, had some bad games, but all in all, it's looking like everything's a go. Despite COVID protocols, we're moving forward. It's good.
Probably is Bateman, the wide receiver in Baltimore, is going to be out until the end of September. He's getting a groin surgery, but that didn't happen in the preseason game. That was before. You made reference to the rookie quarterbacks. Justin Fields looked completely in control, and as somebody who bet the Bears, I was very happy that he was completely in control. Mac Wilson looked dare I say, slightly Brady-esque in running the offense and just doing quick drop, short passes, moving the football down the field. Lawrence was pretty in control. He had hit that long pass. Uh, 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 but that was pretty it. Trey he kind of seemed to install out. He hit a real long pass early, like maybe his first or second pass, and then that was pretty much it. Well as the other rookie quarterbacks did. I think he went something like 3 for 7, 3 or 8. He certainly didn't grab the reins away from Jimmy G, as some suggest.
Yeah, Trey Lance. I mean, North Dakota State has kind of some work to do with getting top tier quarterbacks after Carson Wentz. It's kind of hard to trust those guys, and they haven't necessarily come out and been the most explosive they could be. So, I mean, that's a work in progress, but that's why you still have Jimmy G. You have the ability to give Trey Lance some time. We know Jimmy G can take a team to the Super Bowl, so really don't have any issues there. I would agree that Mac Jones did look Brady-esque. I think that's part of the Patriot way, though. I think that's Bill Belichick going in there and trying to control the situation as best as possible. Yeah, it's Justin Fields. That bet, what was it, Bears? I think it was Bears -3. As soon as the Bears said that they were playing Justin Fields in the second half, like that was a cannot miss. Like there's no way. And if he continues to look that way throughout the preseason, yeah, they got a winner. 3.5. Sorry, go ahead.
It was funny too. Yeah, 3.5 if you got it late. It was funny too because they were down. I think it was 16-3 going into halftime, and Fields had gotten 1 or 2 series before the half. And that series right before halftime, he was in a 2-minute drill kind of thing, and he was starting to move the ball down the field, but he still wasn't in any sort of rhythm. And when he came out and they got the ball in the second half, it was just quick boom, boom, boom. A Bears fan wanted to see and hopes to see. And if Dalton gets off to a slow start, it's only going to make the cries that are already there that much louder.
Yeah, Bears fans are fickle when it comes to quarterbacks too. I mean, we saw what happened with Trubisky and everything, and Nick Foles and all those guys. So, I mean, if they've got one, they're going to be real happy for a while. I'm kind of bummed. My Vikings didn't move up to get him. I understand why. We had bigger needs, but yeah, kind of regretting that decision. Kid looks like a beast right now.
The other thing, quickly, before we move on, you brought up the Viking game. You guys cheer Teddy B. You guys gave him like a homecoming.
Well, yeah. Minnesota nice, bro. We love Teddy as fans. He's like the prom queen that we had, or the girl that we took to prom that we just couldn't commit to after high school. It's sad. It sucks. But with that injury, it was hard for us to say what he would come back as. Most of the guys, though, that leave the Vikings and go elsewhere and make something of themselves, we're super supportive. I think the only one that we might not be is Stephon Diggs. He kind of left on bad terms, but Teddy comes back in the building. We're going to love Teddy forever. We will cheer that guy as long as he's in the league.
You are a fickle bunch. That's all I will say. Fickle bunch.
Hey, man.
All right, so let's move on to the Olympics. Gold, and we have to assert dominance. The basketball team, despite losing early, they end up winning. We win swimming. We're never going to win marathons. That's just not going to happen. We got a silver in baseball, which they're immediately getting rid of for some weird crap, like break dancing or some crap. And the next I don't know. But the most noteworthy thing that came out of U.S. Olympics, they had a team routine, and she basically stated that she wasn't in the right frame of mind and left right before the event. Other gymnast of former years said she had the yips or twisties, as they call it. She eventually did come back to do a event toward the end of the Olympics, which she got. Or on Simone Biles' side in this situation.
Yeah, 100%. Main reason being, you kind of have to look at her career and her background and how kind of everything led to this point. I mean, when you have moves named after you in gymnastics and the judges judge you differently because your moves are too difficult and too dangerous for other people to do, I mean, you kind of set a precedent at that point. And if you feel like, as a competitor, if you feel like you're not on top of your game, or you get the twisties or the yips, which I mean just means you're not confident landing any type of move. I think it's admirable for her to be like, hey, you know what? Nah, I'm not there mentally. I don't want to hold this team back. I understand that I'm the best at it, but there were other athletes that kind of put themselves in the same situation this Olympics, and they didn't really get any headlines for it. They didn't really get chastised for it, and I don't feel like she deserves it. I mean, you got to look at. I mean, she's a sexual abuse survivor, so that in and of itself, mental health wise, with getting the twisties on top of it and trying to carry that entire burden by herself, it's tough, man. I can't be mad at the decision. I can't fault her for it. The only thing I did have an issue with was, like, if you're gonna wear the goat socks, just be ready for some scrutiny. I mean, people out there are gonna have it, but you're not gonna hear it from me.
Well, she's going to hear it from me, and here's why. She was there. She was obviously with the team. She was obviously going through, whatever warm-ups that they did, all of it. She got basically, they were walking into the event. They were getting ready to do whatever routine or whatever it was that they were doing. And she goes, I'm out. Okay. Did the anxiety get to her that floor, whatever verbiage you want to use, that she just couldn't handle it? Because as you said, she's wearing goat socks. She doesn't hide from the fact in commercials and whatnot that she is the most decorated gymnast that we have at the current time. Okay. But you're going to tell me that at that moment, right before your team is about to do what it needs to do, you bailed. Yeah, I take issue to that, because she could have done it at any time. She could have told them hours before. She could have told them the day before. I have an issue that she stepped out onto, basically literally right before they're about to do whatever it is they have to do, and she bailed on her team. That's my problem. It's up and giving them time to maybe adjust. Okay, fine, whatever. Okay. And it doesn't help her. All right. And this has, and this is no fault of her own, but it doesn't help her that we've got Naomi Osaka on the tennis side of things using mental illness as a way to basically avoid the media. Okay. And we can have the discussion about mental illness, and I'm not anxiety, depression. I'm certainly not doing that. But the media is part of your job as an athlete, no matter what the sport is. Okay. It comes with the territory. And no matter disliked you are, there are going to come times where the media is going to bash you. Okay. The media has no problem building somebody up to tear them down later on. And Naomi Osaka, ego got hurt, and she used her she used depression and mental anxiety as a way to avoid the media. No, that's not how it works. And I think part of that kind of I don't have an issue with Biles' excuse. I have a big issue with the timing of it.
Yeah, timing could have been better, but I mean, let's put it in this perspective. Let's look at it this way. We've had other athletes that have persevered and gone through it and pushed forward with it. You look at guys like Brett Favre, who played, was it like 2 or 3 days after his father passed away? Everybody talks about Michael Jordan's flu game. Like, dude still went out there, pushed on, and won. I get all of that. I mean, all of those people pushed it. They moved forward, and if they had opportunities ahead of time to pull out and say no. That's the issue with mental health, though, man. I mean, it's a little bit different. Like, mentally, you could go in and say, like, no, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do this. I'm going to go over there and conquer my fear, and it's going to be a great story. And, I can talk about it with the media and stuff afterwards. But, like, you just get that doubt, and it'll creep in, and it hits you at the most inopportune moment. I understand the gripe with doing it last minute and kind of bailing on your team there. I understand. But the team backed her. I mean, 90% of America, I would say, is backing her on it. It's not great. It's not ideal. But I'm going to give her a pass based on all of that and the medals she's won us before and the fact that we still ended up taking silver. If we didn't make the podium, I would have been like, wow, like our team really needed her that bad. She didn't step up. That sucks. But nah, overall, can't fault her for it. Like, I get it. You have a valid point, but I'm not going to validate it. Like, I take the mental health approaches. That's way more powerful. That's something that needed way more attention in that moment. Bad decision. Learn from it. Move on. That's all you can do. Don't talk to the media. I don't care. I'm not a fan of the media either, so I wouldn't want to. I get it.
I don't necessarily care about the media, but don't go doing credit card commercials or whatever you're doing and then tell me that, twisties and stuff got in your head and that's why you had to back out at the very last second.
Guys get the yips all the time in football. I mean, as a Vikings fan, I can attest. I've had many kickers with the yips. Blame every single one of them for it. I mean, they're not. If Adam Vinatieri got the yips, that would be something. It'd be interesting to see what he would do in a situation like that. But I don't know, man. It happens all the time. Just because she makes a lot of money and she gets commercials. Michael Phelps was the same way. He talks about being suicidal and having depression and all that. I mean, he still went out and performed, but if he would have pulled the same thing, I wouldn't be mad at him either.
No. Instead, we got Ryan Locke pretending that he got held up at a gas station or whatever that thing was.
He got robbed in the barrio in Rio. Yeah, that was fun. That's a good story.
All right. So flip side of the Olympic scale was Gable Steveson.
Steveson.
Oh yeah,
Say
fun
it right.
story.
Put some respect on
Gable
that.
Steveson was able to get the gold in wrestling, as he was able to score there with literally seconds left. I'm trying to put respect on the name here. That's why I'm bringing it up. It was lost. And, anytime somebody wins a gold medal, in right angle, be the first to tell you, he won with a broken freaking neck and made a career out of it. So Daniel Cormier, who is always one to be vocal about his feelings, said that he thinks Gable Steveson should go to the WWE instead of the UFC. And he said that, let me get it in. I'm going to the WWE first. I'm taking the Brock Lesnar approach because the WWE wants him just as much as the UFC. Cormier does know a little bit about the WWE. I mean, the WWE came knocking on Cormier's door at one point, though he did not answer. You're in agreement with Cormier here.
Yeah, I agree with Daniel Cormier on this one. The big thing for me is MMA is a fickle game. If he comes in, almost does like a Greg Hardy type approach, he loses so much momentum on his name. Like he would get there, but I mean, Gable Steveson is really, and he's come out and said it, he's about the money. He's going to get more money if he goes to the WWE right away with his exposure. And I mean, you brought it up, Kurt Angle won the gold medal with a broken neck. Kurt Angle's not the only guy to do this, though. I mean, you look at Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock was a guy that started in MMA, went over to the WWE, came back to MMA. Like, this happens more often than not, and I do think the WWE is the way to go. He's going to get that national exposure. He's going to keep that name. He'll keep his name going. What's that other guy, Jack Swagger, who's in the MMA right now, or who's in MMA right now, over in Bellator? Like, this happens. There is that crossover. And Daniel Cormier is looking at it from the perspective of, dude, you want to make money in the UFC? Go to WWE, get that name, get that fan base. You have the background already. We know you can fight. This also allows you all the time in the world that you need. You know, you're not going to come over and be like a CM Punk who has no idea what fighting or wrestling or anything is. So he's got a lot of benefits starting in the WWE. If he goes to the UFC first and just gets absolutely destroyed by some guy, like Ronda Rousey eventually got destroyed and then went to the WWE. Ronda Rousey's not even a big deal in WWE anymore. So it's a better move to start in the WWE, build your name, build your brand, get everything built up the way you want to there, then go talk to Uncle Dana, get yourself a pay-per-view fight, get your bag, and ride off into the sunset. That really is the way to go.
I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. You want to take the Kurt Angle approach because as far as I'm concerned, Gable Steveson is nowhere near Brock Lesnar. He's not the box office attraction that Brock Lesnar is. Brock Lesnar translates on both ends, MMA and WWE. Gable's not there. Okay? So that's first off. Second off, the biggest thing that Kurt Angle brought from winning the gold medal to when he went to WWE was they had no idea how athletic he was. This guy was doing backflips from the top rope and just things that were unheard of. Now, admittedly, I don't know how athletic Gable Steveson is. Okay, maybe he can do a backflip off the top rope. I have no idea. But I'm also going to go out on a limb and say that the general WWE fan at the moment has no idea who Gable Steveson is. None. And, okay, as somebody who stays far, far away from the current WWE product, I would have no faith. That was another thing that happened with Kurt Angle that really helped elevate him was they packaged him really well. They built well, right, and then showcased the athleticism, and that built him up into the main event guy that he was. I have no faith in WWE packaging Gable Steveson that way. I mean, they have had wrestlers and guys that were Olympians come in since, and they have all fallen flat on their face. If I'm Gable Steveson, I'm going to UFC, okay? I'm hoping that I have a close to, I guess, a more, I'm not putting him on the Brock Lesnar path, but I want a successful path a la a Brock Lesnar and not a CM Punk. And that builds my name a little more, and then I can hop. I don't think he can go to WWE first and then MMA will want, and then MMA will come. Because if he falls on his face in WWE, what is Dana going to want with him?
Oh, Dana's still going to want him. And just to speak to his athleticism a little bit, Gable Steveson, after every win, does a backflip. Like, he's on the mat, runs, does a backflip. That's his celebration. So if he can do that just on the mat, he can do it off the top rope. That guy has an electric personality. And from what little WWE knowledge I do have, okay, I've been watching it more and paying attention more because of Pat McAfee. Shout out to that guy. He's really kind of bringing in a new era. He's bringing in a new audience. Gable Steveson is a barstool athlete. Shout out to the NIL. He's being represented by these up and coming brands, or by these online brands that the youth are more inclined to follow. He has done podcasts and documentaries already with like Anatomy of a Fighter and those guys over there. Dude's got personality. Dude's electric. He's 6'6" or 6'7", 275. Dude can do a standing backflip. Like, the guy's got the athletics. He's got the charisma. He's got the charm. He just talked about it the other day where he hasn't talked to Vince McMahon. He has talked to Dana White, but he really doesn't care. He will go either. Whichever one wants him more is where he's going to go. But he grew up looking up to Brock Lesnar. I mean, he wrestled at the U of M, same as Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar's picture's on the wall up there in the wrestling room. Gable's right underneath him. And he's following a legacy that he's built for himself. He always knew what he wanted to do. I don't really think he cares which route he goes. If it's me looking at his star factor and everything, where he's going to be best utilized, it's WWE over UFC hands down. Dana's going to put him in a farm system or try and put him on something like The Ultimate Fighter until he's good enough for Dana to make some real money off of him. So he's going to be on the sidelines. He's not going to be building his brand during that time. I'd rather have you go over to the WWE, put in work there, just get your start as who you are, with your star, with your shine, while the Olympics are still fresh in everyone's mind and that epic comeback is still in everybody's mind. WWE has the ability to bring that up from an entertainment standpoint, to make him big, make him better. He can ride that wave as long as he needs to, and when he feels ready, he'll make the jump. Dana and Vince McMahon have worked this out before. They'll work it out for him. And it's not like he can't go back to the WWE at that point, especially if he wins. Then he's really on the Lesnar track. Oh, my God. He'd be huge.
If you're right in the aspect that everything is there for WWE to package him correctly. And if packaged correctly, he can be a star. Again, I just don't have faith in them doing that. However, what you said is interesting, that, he is a big Lesnar guy. And if you paid any attention to Lesnar, it bears credence to what I'm saying about doing UFC first. Because Lesnar did the WWE route first. He was tabbed the next big thing when he broke in after doing the training, being in the minor leagues, so to speak, of WWE for a while. And what happened? He was the youngest WWE champion at the time. He was, a main event guy. And ultimately, he ended up leaving and booed out of the place because it just wasn't working. He wasn't this huge. I mean, he was a big draw, but he wasn't the guy that he is now. And he went to UFC. And then what did he do? He went to UFC, won a couple of fights, won the championship in his third fight, if I'm correct, where he was just a balloon ready to explode. And then when he comes back to WWE, he is the guy. I mean, he shows up 3 times a year and people can't get enough of it. Okay. And Lesnar is the perfect guy in WWE because you either love Brock or you hate Brock. There is no in between. Okay. And because he only shows up a few times a year, it is pure box office. He's always at Brock's phone because he knows UFC pay-per-view, the buys will be up, up, and up. Just that. Okay. The interest for a Brock Lesnar fight on a UFC card hasn't faded, despite the fact that Brock hasn't been on a card in however many years it's been.
Yeah, the one thing that you're missing here, though, is, and this could just be for lack of knowledge on who this guy is. Brock Lesnar went in there as just a physical specimen. Like, Brock was not a personality. He was just a fixture of, like, Bill Goldberg with a lower IQ. Like, dude wasn't super smart. He didn't do a lot of trash talk. He was just a physical force in the WWE. Also, when he came over to the UFC, Randy Couture was champion. Randy Couture, old Randy Couture, not young Randy Couture, old Randy Couture. You also have to look at the heavyweight division at that point. You really had like 4 guys in that division, and that was it. You had like the Nogueira brothers, you had Frank Mir, Couture. That was about it. So he was walking in just beating these guys that couldn't handle him physically. You look at the UFC's heavyweight division right now. I mean, Francis Ngannou is no can. Cyril Gane is no can. Even Derek Lewis is not a pushover. You have all these guys in there that are just monsters. Even, well, I mean, Tai Tuivasa just knocked out Greg Hardy. Like, you have these guys that are killers. It's not a weak division. Dana doesn't need Gable to come in and revive the division or make the heavyweight division interesting again. That's what Brock did. That's why Brock got a heavyweight title on his 3rd fight at 1-1 after beating the same guy basically twice and just getting caught once. It's not going to work out that way. Dana's going to make him work for it. I mean, he's tried this before with like Kimbo. He's tried it with other guys and it hasn't worked out. So he's not just going to give it to this guy. He's going to make him go out there. And Brock, to his credit, was just that physical specimen who could go out there, mush on a guy, just hammer fist him until he gets the ref to stop it. That's all he had to do. He didn't really have any stand-up technique. He just had that, I'm going to blitz you, I'm going to take you down, and I'm going to hammer fist you until it's over. Gable's not going to get away with that in today's heavyweight division. So you go over to the WWE, he has actual mic skills. I mean, dude can talk. Dude can chatter back and forth. He's got that personality. I would look at him closer to something like, I don't really know the WWE guys anymore, but you put him up against somebody like a Roman Reigns or like a Braun Strowman or somebody like that, I'm interested. I want to see those guys go back and forth. I want to see that exchange. That builds a bigger brand. And then if UFC comes a calling where he says, you know what, I want to try fighting, Dana's like, oh, I'm just going to rake in money from the WWE guys now. Like, I'll give him a fight and it'll be a tough test. And hey, if he's actually that good, we'll bump him up. Dana's all about the money, so he'll do it. But if that dude comes straight out of college, like some of these other guys have, and hasn't panned out and hasn't worked out well, and they just totally tank their draft stock, it's not going to pay off. So the WWE route, if packaged correctly, which I agree, they don't necessarily do a great job, but if they did, I mean, you're talking your next Dwayne Johnson, you're talking your next John Cena potentially. He's what Brock should have been, if you ask me.
I think the biggest thing, and again, you know more about. I know more about WWE. You know more about Stevenson, which is why we're going back and forth on this. I think the biggest thing that I guess is up in the air as far as how well Stevenson would work in WWE, despite the packaging issues, is how well he would be on the mic. I've heard him talk bits and pieces. I haven't really heard much of him doing interviews and whatnot, so I don't know how well he is on the mic. But I would say the greatest aspect that Angle brought from everything else was he was great on the mic, and you know, he was funny. He could do comedy and things like that. He made himself a full character. I mean, you're telling me about Stevenson's personality and things like that. If he can shine through, if he can be good on the mic, then yeah. I mean, he could, you know, if he is that, he could even bust through bad packaging, so to speak. You know, so it'll be interesting to see what route he eventually does take, if it's the WWE or the UFC route. And it would be interesting to see if he does take the WWE route, where they would ultimately put him. If they would put him on a main show like Raw or SmackDown, or if they would do like they do with a lot of other guys coming in and put him on NXT, which I would argue is, you know, even though it's quote unquote the minor, so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if he ended up in NXT. They'd also package him a lot better if he was on NXT. But something that we will keep tabs on here as we move forward. Moving on, you brought up the NIL when you were talking about Stevenson, and the NIL is the latest in college athletes trying to get paid. The courts have stepped in and allowed this to happen, in which now guys can get paid for their likenesses and can go get endorsement deals, I guess, or whatever. Go to the car wash and do a signing and get paid for it, things like that. So bad that Reggie Bush wants his Heisman back. That's where we're at with this. To me, the NIL is a band-aid. This basically will quiet down people for a short amount of time until they see the actual problem. I think you are more of a fan of the NIL than I am, so I'll kind of let you speak your piece here first before I state my huge issue with the NIL.
Sure. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me when it comes to the NIL is, it's been the topic for the last 20 years. Since I've been following college sports, pay for play. These guys are basically working full-time jobs, guys and girls, just as college athletes, regardless of sport. If you're playing volleyball, if you're on a crew team, football, baseball, basketball, whatever. These universities are raking in the money using their name, image, and likeness. The players, yes, they're getting a scholarship out of it. Most of them. Some of them. I won't say most. But, there's a fair number that are getting scholarships and things out of this. But with them being allowed to use their name, image, and likeness, with today's society and with where everything is going, you get to build your own brand on social media. I can sell my own merch. I can sell my own T-shirts. I can have brands back me. I think that this changes a lot of things. And while we don't necessarily know how yet, I think that there's a lot of different opportunities here. I was looking into it. And so, you've got guys like King, the new quarterback at Miami, and you've got Alabama's quarterback. These guys making almost $1 million with this NIL deal. And I look at it like, okay, so that's big tier schools. Some of those schools are super supportive of this NIL agreement as well. They're allowing them to be like, yeah, you want to put yourself in uniform and you want to put that on a T-shirt, or you want to use that as part of your marketing and part of your brand. Yeah, sure, go right ahead. I know LSU is basically telling kids, go make your money. Wherever you want to sign, whatever you want to do, we'll help you out. Then you have schools like Texas. You can't use the word Texas. You can't use the color orange. You can't use the shape of the state of Texas. You can't do any of these things. But you can market yourself and you can do whatever you want. We want nothing to do with it. So there's a fine line with it. But I think that you're going to look at these guys that are in Division I schools, but not necessarily like your top tier, your Alabamas, your Clemsons, your LSUs, Ohio States, USC. Look at guys like Arkansas, South Carolina. I'm going to go get a $15,000 deal through the NIL, and I'm going to be marketed because I'm playing against Alabama, LSU, Florida. I'm playing all these big schools. SEC Network is going to cover those games when they're playing, so I have a huge platform already. If I'm like a mid-tier company looking to market an athlete, I can easily go out and get a bunch of those guys and market their stuff because, hey, they're playing Alabama this week. I'm going to get exposure from an athlete that's playing against Alabama because I can't afford an Alabama athlete. So you're going to start seeing a lot of this back and forth give and take. What I also think you're going to see is guys like the big name quarterbacks, big name wide receivers are going to be taking care of their teammates too. I don't think it's going to be too long before we see a quarterback go, you want me to represent what? Okay, yeah, no, I'll absolutely do that. You guys got to take care of my offensive linemen too, though. They're in the deal, or give them some kind of deal as well. Just giving themselves extra protection while boosting up their team, showing that they're team players on that as well. I think it can go that route, but I also see the inverse where it could be power hungry, greedy, just make as much money as you can. I don't care about my teammates kind of deal. I just care about me and my brand. Could go either way. But I'm excited about the prospect. I'm excited that these guys can actually make money on the things that they do and who they are. Yeah, I support that. Any other college student can do it. It's just athletes that weren't able to up to this point. So, yeah, I'm in favor for the equality.
Okay, so you brought up one of the issues I have, which is, and if your hope or thought comes true, then it would solve this, which is this is just showing what we already know. Okay, the guys that are probably going to make money down the road are just going to make money up front now. Okay, because the slot receiver or the center isn't getting a call to go do an endorsement. Okay, it's the quarterback, it's the running back, it's the big receiver, it's the stud, it's the stud linebacker or corner, guys that are going to get paid anyway. But ultimately, here is my problem with the NIL. NIL is set up where if I can pay a kid to come do whatever, endorse whatever, however, there's no money coming out of the juggernaut, which is the NCAA. The NCAA and these schools scholarships, which to an extent you are correct. However, if the schools were really paying them with a scholarship, they would also hold them to the accountability of coming to class and graduating, which doesn't happen. Okay, they're buying athletes. So if you're going to buy athletes, okay, stop with the scholarships and pay the kids. Okay, take it out of the school, take it out of the boosters. Say, here, we're going to give you X amount of money to come play for us. Plain and simple. I don't want to hear, oh, we gave them a scholarship anymore. If you gave them a scholarship, have them come to class every day, have them get grades, and then he goes plays football, because that's what it's supposed to be. He's supposed to be a student first. The phrase is student comes first. You think the guys that go, the quarterback that gets recruited to Miami is a student first? So until the money comes out of the school and the boosters, I'll still have a problem with whatever setup they come up with, because a scholarship doesn't solve the issue.
Yeah, no, I agree. Really, this NIL deal is just a new money pot. It's not taking from the existing pot. There's no revenue share between the schools and the students. So the NCAA is still going to make all their money. It doesn't have anything to do with the students. So I'm with you. Like, that definitely needs to change. But hopefully this is like literally the company that started this all. It's an open door. Hopefully this just opens the door. Hopefully 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that's going to change as well. Like, I don't have an issue with these schools taking their athletic programs. Like, if Alabama comes out tomorrow and says, you know what, the football players that come to our school, we're going to sign you and we're going to pay you as if you were a pro athlete, but we're going to pay you at an amateur level or at a semi-pro level, and this is going to be like a farm system for the NFL. I've always kind of been in support of that. I would support that at this level as well. And, if Alabama then used that as a recruiting tool to get students so that they could spend those scholarship dollars elsewhere, like, fine. I'm all for that. NCAA is not going to do it. They don't want anybody dipping into their money pot. So, it at this point, it's a start. The NIL deal in and of itself is a win. I'm going to take it at that and worry about the NCAA later.
I wonder if the NIL opens the door for this possibility. And mind you, this is a far-fetched theory that I have, but let's run it down the road here for a minute. You brought up Dwayne Johnson. We were talking about Gable Steveson. Dwayne Johnson is resurrecting the XFL here in I'm not sure if it's this year or next year.
I think it's next year.
But nevertheless, he is resurrecting. But it's him and it's a group, and obviously they have money behind them. They bought what was quote unquote the rights of the XFL, and they've got they're taking their time to kind of build this up and make sure that once it launches, it launches and doesn't fall on its face. So I wonder if with the assumption that there is money behind this, if the NIL, the XFL group now kids and saying, listen, we know that, you can't go to the NFL until you play X amount of years. And we understand that you can go to school and, with the NIL, you can go and market yourself and make money. However, if you are exactly what we believe you are, which is an athlete, not a student, and the scholarship means nothing to you, come here and showcase yourself, and we will pay you. Similar to what the G League is starting to do now, where kids aren't going to college. They're doing their year in the G League. They're getting paid. Jalen Green was the number 2 pick out of the G League. So I wonder if this is opening a door to the XFL to essentially be the G League.
Yeah, that's a good point. I could definitely see it. I would be in support of it. I think the problem is, Dwayne Johnson's huge. He's a big name, and he's a great face for the XFL. It's got to be more than that, though. I mean, you have to work with the NFL directly. So it would have to be some type of agreement between them to even get the ball rolling. Would love to see it. I agree. Like the way that the NBA is doing the G League and more people are going towards that, love that. I think that's great. This is what we should have been doing.
I think there is a unspoken agreement between the XFL and the NFL already that can be expanded upon. I mean, we have seen guys that, even in the brief spurts that of the XFL that have been out there, we have seen guys that have, stood out and even picked up in the NFL. I mean, the NFL as another talent source, so there that can be expanded upon or worked out to make it, even more of a interlocking source. And what better way to give validity to the XFL, which, let's face it, at the moment doesn't have much validity behind it, to get a couple of high-end recruits to be the faces of.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth looking into. I think as a community, as a sports community, I think if we all push it, I think it'll get there eventually. Interesting prospects. I'm excited for it. If this NIL deal opens this up, this is going to be huge. And if those possibilities are on the horizon, if they're even feasible, I'm all for it. I support it 100%. And
Getting the next Manning.
Archie, yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know that the Mannings would go for that, but if they did, that'd be huge.
I just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, I'm
that would
with you.
certainly
That's a
be
good idea.
statement.
Oh yeah,
but yeah. All right, so real quickly, I was going to say I'm not baseball week, but I saw this come across, and I can't let this escape this, because for anybody who's listened to my shows before, you know that my hatred for Rob Manfred is deep. It is deep. Like he has surpassed all the other commissioners as my most hated commissioner. Roger Goodell looks like Saint Nick compared to Rob Manfred. And Rob Manfred, amongst all the dumb, an even dumber one, and that is to expand the postseason to 14 teams. If you remember, he did 16 in the COVID season. Now he wants to do 14. So what does that mean? It means that right now, if the season were to end today, you would have in the National League the Braves, the Brewers, the Giants, along with the Dodgers and the Padres. Padres. All right, that's in the format that we have now. In this new format, you would also have Cincinnati and St. Louis in the playoff. In the American League right now, under this proposed, you would also have the Yankees and Toronto in. What are you doing with this? Okay, it makes winning divisions mean nothing. It makes the wild card mean absolutely nothing. Okay. Right now, like I said, the Cardinals are 5 games over 500. Toronto is 8 games over. By the way, if this new proposal were to be implemented right now, that's how but look at the National League East isn't something I necessarily want to look at right now, but you have 3 teams in the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets, all that are so horrible in the fact that they cannot go on sustained winning streaks to take over this division, that they're all remotely close trying to still win the division. Under this proposal, what does that race mean? What does that race mean? Because if you don't win the division, you've got to be really bad to not fall into the extra wild cards. And I understand that if it was in right now, the Phillies and the Mets would still not make it. But I mean, as we sit coming into the day, the Phillies would have been a half game out, and the Mets would have been 1.5 out of that last wild card. So what makes division races meaningless? Meaningless. Does Rob Manfred want to destroy baseball from the core to the outside? Is that what his goal is here? Because he's doing.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can really see with this, other than Rob Manfred, is just Rob Manfred. I mean, the guy's, what did he say last year or after the Houston cheating scandal? It's just a piece of metal. Like, the guy clearly doesn't care about baseball. The only thing I can really see with this is potentially trying to
help the World Series trophy a piece of metal. Piece of metal. That's why I wanted to kill him.
Yeah, I understand. I was very upset too. Mainly because I hate cheaters. Secondly, just the audacity to say something like that. But the big thing with this, the only thing I can see is potentially trying to get some money back after everything that happened last year. Maybe trying to help out a couple of these teams, just try and get some more revenue streams coming in with some playoff baseball. That's the only thing that I can think of with this, because like from your explanation of it, and I tried to look into it and I didn't really have an opinion, but I was like, yeah, sure, cool. I mean, if the Twins were in it, I'd be like, hey, we got in on a loophole. I'm excited. But
you're right. The problem is you're right. As of the current agreement, still a majority of it goes to the owners. It doesn't even go to the players. So now the players are like, great, we get in the playoffs. We have to play more games to try and win the World Series, and we're still not getting a great big piece of this pie. Okay, and we all know that postseason money is worth a lot more than regular season money, which we're now devaluing anyway. All right, which is why D-Day is coming. And I've been banging this door for 2 years, but it's coming. New Year's Day, the locks go on the doors. I don't care about all the optimism that I keep hearing about. Oh, a deal's going to get done. Both these sides know that a strike doesn't help anybody, and you know, we barely survived the 94 strike, and steroids probably helped that out a little bit, but they definitely know that they can't survive another one. Greed is greed. And the player line, he's not exactly instilling a whole lot of confidence. Players basically bend over and take whatever the owners are going to offer them, or they can't hold the line and basically wilt at the last second. We're going to get a strike, because a strike is the only way to ultimately make this pie even close to remotely the half and half or 60-40 that it should be, instead of the 80-20 that it probably is now.
Yeah, the big thing for me with that is I don't know how like the contracts for a lot of these guys work. I know like in the NFL, if you make the playoffs, like sometimes there's added bonuses that go in for some players, not all players, but for some players. But yeah, I agree. I think it's going to come to a strike. I think that the writing is on the wall. I think we're going to see Rob Manfred replaced here pretty soon at this rate. The MLBPA really needs to step in and do something for once. I mean, they've just been kind of sitting idly by. You've had the Astros cheating scandal. You had the whole spider tack thing this year. A couple years ago, pitchers were complaining because they've changed the balls, so it made it easier for all the home runs to get hit and everything. Baseball, in and of itself, I mean, you have big names, but you don't have, like you were saying, with the steroid era, you don't have the Alex Rodriguez, you don't have the Mark McGuire, you don't have the Sammy Sosa, you don't have the Ken Griffey Jr. You've got Mike Trout, you've got Shohei Ohtani right now, which is huge. I mean, the fact that we have a guy like Ohtani playing right now, and no one, I mean, people care, but it's not like that people pay attention and care, and he fills out a stadium wherever he goes, kind of thing. I mean, it's tough. There's got to be a change. You have to do something. And I know they've made the modifications over the years to try and speed up, substitutions for pitching, bullpen changes. They've tried to speed up the game overall so it doesn't feel like it's 3 hours. They're trying these. I know. I don't want to get you started, but I'm saying these are the things that they're trying. It's not working. It's just not compatible. They've got to figure it out. I think they've got to get some fresh blood in there. They've got to do something different. Bud Selig kind of rode the wave and didn't care much on his way out. Rob Manfred just kind of took up that mantle right from Bud, just did the same thing that he's doing. Get us somebody else. Give me something new, fresh, exciting. Do something, for God's sakes, to get me back into it. A 14-team playoff is not it, though.
Really quickly, and we'll move on, I just want to make this note. I went to a minor league baseball game last night. The game took slightly over 2.5 hours. You know the big difference between that game and the Major League Baseball game, and why the Major League Baseball game would have taken at least bare minimum another half hour to get done? There were no commercials. There were no commercials. So if Manfred is really concerned about cutting down the time that it takes to play a game, how about sacrifice a little bit of the money coming in? Just saying. All right. So quickly here before we wrap up, let's talk a little UFC. As I mentioned, we were going to do the watch along with the last card, and then when the Pena fight came off, it kind of lost its luster, so we backed off that. The card was still interesting though. The main event wasn't a huge surprise. I mean, you and I talked about it, and it played out as we expected, but it certainly sets up things for down the road.
It does for sure set them up for down the road. I mean, Cyril Gahn is kind of new on the scene. And the fact that he's beaten a guy like Derek Lewis now, and he's beat some of the bigger names in the heavyweight division, which, as good as I was talking up the division earlier, there are some big names there. There are some studs. I mean, you still have Stipe, you have Francis, you have Derek Lewis, you have Tai Tuivasa. You have these guys. But, like, Cyril Gahn isn't a flashy fighter. He's not a Conor McGregor of a heavyweight division. That's what Francis is there for. Francis is that super huge dude with the knockout power who's starting to learn how to actually put it all together and be kind of exciting. So to see Cyril Gahn come in and to have like a legitimate contender, I don't even want to get into the whole interim belt thing. Dana has his reasons. I don't necessarily agree with it, but whatever. It is what it is. He's the interim champ. I don't think he stands a chance against Ngannou, though. I think Ngannou is going to kind of run through him, and it kind of puts the heavyweight division in a hard spot. I mean, who are you going to have him fight next? I mean, there's a couple guys in there, but there's not a whole lot that you can do. What I found the most interesting out of the UFC recently is the divisions that Dana was trying to kill off about 2 years ago. Actually pretty exciting again. Like, you've got Brandon Moreno now as the champ, beating Davison Figueiredo handily. You've got TJ Dillashaw coming back off a 2-year suspension, looking okay against a off night for Corey Sandhagen. I mean, you have 145 Volkanovski and Ortega in tough right now. They're chirping. That looks like an exciting fight. Still have everything going on at 155 with Oliveira now. Like, things are looking good down there. But the women's division, it sucks that Nunes had to back out with COVID. Really was looking forward to that fight. Hopefully we see that one next month or coming up soon, because that was really the draw for me. I wanted to see if Derek Lewis still had it. He's kind of old and tired, but still going to be a face, still going to be a star. But I saw more faults than anything out of that card.
I'm looking ahead at the 266 card, which you brought up with the Volkanovski and Ortega fight. That card's not for another month, but I'm looking at it. All right, the co-main event is the Shevchenko Murphy fight, and Shevchenko, appears to be on that Ronda Rousey run right now, where she's just not getting touched. She's just not getting touched. I mean, I can't think of anybody that you could put across from her right now that I go, I legitimately see there's a chance for her to lose.
Other than Nunes. But we've seen that before. So, yeah, Valentina, she's just too good. Same thing with Amanda. I mean, Amanda's got two divisions by herself.
Also on that card is Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler. I feel like that's a fight from 5 years ago.
Oh, dude, that's the nostalgia. This is
and what's
UFC's
with this
version
Diaz
of
Lawler
Bellator.
fight? I feel like that's like why is that on the card? And why is it so high up on the card is a better question.
Well, it's easy. Money. Dana loves money.
Speaking of money, and speaking of Dana loving it, I do have one other UFC question here that I have to ask, because it's my favorite guy in the whole wide world, and I hate him with all the passion. Where is Jon Jones?
I mean, that's an easy answer, too. Jon Jones is sitting in his house in New Mexico waiting for Dana to pay him some real money. That's where Jon Jones is. Jon Jones is he wants that Conor McGregor money. That's what Jon Jones wants.
Here's the thing. I feel like Jon Jones, because Jon Jones has chirped about this fight for, I feel like, waiting for Dana to put together this one fight because he knows that's what would make all the money in the world. He wants, and listen, I know what goes through Jon Jones's mind when he thinks about this fight, but I also don't think he thinks about the small percentage chance that this goes horribly wrong for him in this fight.
So, I mean, but you're Jon Jones. You have one loss technically by disqualification. I mean, you look at Jon Jones, he's going to be like, dude, I'm undefeated. I've been around longer than somebody like Khabib. Khabib was getting pretty much whatever he wanted. Pay me my money. Like, what did he say? I think he wanted like 20 million is what he told Danny. He wanted like 10 to 20 million to fight Stipe at the time. And he's probably going to ask for the same against Ngannou. Ngannou's a bad fight for him. Like, I don't necessarily think he loses that fight, but it's a bad fight for him. So Jon is just going to play the long game. But Dana doesn't seem to care. Dana's also had, to Dana's credit, Jon's pulled out of fights before. They've had issues with Jon fighting before with the pictograms and moving a fight from Vegas to California on like 3 days' notice. You have these things.
Forget Jon pulling out a fight.
You're gonna have to say that again, but I didn't catch a word that you said. Sorry.
I said forget about Jon pulling out of fights. We've had Jon having problems with just passing drug tests. The simple things about having a fight and making sure the decision stands. Little things.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, the whole Jon Jones thing upsets me ever since I defended him all those years ago when we were talking about him fighting Brock Lesnar. and then he popped. Like, I'm kind of almost on the Dana White train with this. Is like, if Jon wants to fight, he'll let me know. Like, if Jon actually wants to fight and wants it to be serious and anything other than just hype or talk on Twitter, he'll let us know. And he'll be the first to let us know. So until then, I don't really care. I'll be excited for it when it happens, not holding my breath. If the day finally comes, I'll be the first one to click that buy button. That's about where I have to leave it with him, though.
If Jon Jones ever fights again, I'll wait 3 days afterwards to hear that he got popped for another failed drug test. That's where I'm at with it.
I hear you. That's fair. Granted, I mean...
Okay, lastly, I feel like this is going to be a regular segment on this show where we either bash LeBron or we just take something from our buddy Adrian, whose takes are horrible, and end up bashing that. But Adrian is a how do I want to put this? A LeBron apologist. Like, is that fair? Okay. So he's a LeBron apologist. So I doubt he's watching right now, but we'll send him the feed so I can hear whatever excuses he has for this. But Space Jam, despite having a good opening week, eventually fell on its face as expected, as LeBron does his usual of trying to do anything that MJ did. And I forget exactly. I didn't do well in the box office because of racism. Like, we're blaming the flop on racism. So what is Disney going to blame, anti-Americanism on the fact that Black Widow didn't do well after a couple of weeks in the box office? Like where are we going with this?
Well, first of all, I think Black Widow is going the route of sexism, much the same as they did with Captain Marvel. You don't like a strong female lead. That's why it didn't make any money. The men out there didn't want this. And yeah, don't get me wrong. Loved Black Widow. Thought it was a great movie. Space Jam 2 had zero desire to watch it. The reason why I had no desire to watch this movie is 3 reasons. 1, LeBron's not MJ. Stop trying to be MJ. Stop trying to make LeBron MJ. He's not MJ. They're not the same player. They both are equally talented at the things that they do. I have no issues with LeBron making his money, doing his thing, killing it on the court for as long as he's done it, and in a lot of ways done it better than everybody. So I give LeBron a certain amount of credit. I don't think that he's better than Jordan. I will never say that he's better than Jordan, but his issue is he needs to stop trying to be Jordan. And whether that's his fault or his marketing or his brand, whatever they're trying to do to compare him to MJ and put him in a cookie cutter copy or very similar, same premise, same characters, same everything. We're going to build it up the same way. It's just LeBron instead of MJ. Zero desire to see that movie. Like my version better. 30-year-old man, going to watch the original. Don't care about this new one. Now, when my kid's born, if my kid wants to watch it, I'll watch it. If they love it, great. Happy for them. The only people that are really going to see movies right now is not kids. It's adults. It's not a movie for adults. So if you're trying to pull on the heartstrings of us 30 or 30, 40-year-old men because, hey, look, Space Jam, this is a movie from your childhood. Yeah, don't care, bro. Give me something new. I'm kind of bored with all the things that I've already watched. So that's my big thing. To call it racism is just a cookie cutter excuse of today's society that we live in. There's nothing we can do about that, man. I'm gonna just leave that where it is. You can be racist or not.
Here's
the
other thing. The other thing they've overlooked, and this is the same issue that Black Widow had, is Disney Plus. Even though you had to pay for it on Disney Plus, but I mean, Space Jam you could have watched on HBO Max for free. So, do I want to go to the movie theater, buy the tickets, buy the popcorn, and for the and whatever else for the family, however large your family is, whether it's small, big, whatever. I mean, in the movie theater, and I haven't been in the movie theater since pre-COVID. I mean, the movie theater was never a cheap expense. My food, or however I want to set it up and just watch it. Yeah, like, so what is the appeal of going to the theater? Like, I'm not doing it. And that's the thing that all of these places need to start getting a grip of. Like, the more you give me the option to sit in my house and watch this stuff as opposed to going to the theater, the less likely I am to go to the theater. Like, the appeal to me just isn't that great that I need to spend that much more to go watch it in a theater.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that speaks to, again, like culture in today's cinema. And I don't know if you ever watched like that show Hot Ones, but Matt Damon was just on there a little bit ago. And he kind of talked about how movies get made today. It has to be kind of a cinematic adventure. If it's not going to do well in a cinema, it's not just like your old early 2000s or 90s movies where there's a heavy dialogue, there's a purpose, there's emotion into it. It's not big, flashy cinema, like cinematic adventure. They're not really going to do it anymore. Or those are getting to be the more indie style films that we're seeing, the more low budget things that can go on Netflix, Hulu, things like that. You're starting to see more of that. So something like Space Jam, and you're right, having it on HBO Max, having Black Widow on Disney Plus, I'm going to watch that stuff from the comfort of my own home because I don't care to go to the movie theater right now. COVID's still a thing. If you want me to go, like, I'm considering going to Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds in the movie theater because that looks awesome. I think that would be great to go see and experience in a movie theater. I don't need to see a redo of Space Jam in a movie theater. I saw it the first time in theaters. It was great. Don't need to see it again at my age. Black Widow, I could go see it in a movie theater. It would probably be awesome, but not in the current climate. Not going to do it. So that hurts these movies in and of itself. So you bring up a great point with that.
And finally, okay, like I'm not going to keep. This has been debated over and over and over, so I'm not going to kill this even more. But stop with the LeBron MJ debate. All right, we can point to 8 games every year. LeBron doesn't. Okay. Yeah. Look, and for arguments, LeBron's not even Kobe. Okay. Like, so just stop. All right. LeBron, if LeBron was so worried about the legacy and the image and all of that, he wouldn't have become the all-time recruiter that he is, because that's what he is. He's a recruiter. He's not a leader. He's a recruiter. Okay. He went to Miami, had that set up. He went to Cleveland once Cleveland had amassed some pieces, articulate deals. I mean, they drafted Andrew Wiggins and LeBron immediately sent him out to go get Kevin Love, and if it wasn't for Kyrie hitting a shot, he still wouldn't have won a title there. I mean, you have LeBron might be closer to MJ if it was him that hit the shot instead of Kyrie. He knows a little something, and then look at what he's done in LA. No, there's no argument, there's no discussion, there's no nothing. I can get off the nipple. There's nothing to be there. There's no conversation to be had. It's done.
Yeah, I look at it this way, and you bring up great points with how LeBron's kind of career ran, him being a recruiter. I look at it as MJ made the game what it is today. He really set that standard. He got everybody into basketball again. He was that new shiny face guy that was coming out doing things you'd never seen before. Kobe mastered the game. Kobe looked at what MJ did and said, I can do that just as good, if not better than you. Watch me go out here and do it. Granted, he had help from like Shaq and everything like that too. So I get it. LeBron or Jordan had Pippen and Kerr and all those guys as well. Now you look at LeBron. LeBron changed the game. LeBron said, "Hey, you know what? I can go out and get super teams. I can get guys to come play with me. We're going to make this into a show. We're going to make this about these big teams because I want to win and I want to bring in all these guys with me that hit the areas that I don't hit." And he kind of took it as from a like Phil Jackson building these teams and building them up, making them better. LeBron's going out there saying, like, if I get this guy, and this guy, I got a winner. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to run this show. So he's player coaching more than any other player that's been out there. So he's changing the game in that way. And when he's gone, I wonder who will step up and take that mantle, but I don't think we're going to see that change for a while.
Real quickly, I found this and I thought this was pretty amusing. And again, if Adrian ever watches this, I want to hear the excuse on this. MJ's best teammates versus LeBron's best teammates. Okay, the LeBron starting five. Dwayne Wade. Average 22.7 points, 13 All-Stars. Anthony Davis, 7-time All-Star. Kyrie, 21 points, 6-time All-Star. Chris Bosh, 18 points, 10-time All-Star, 10-time All-Star. Ilgauskas, 14 points, 2-time All-Star. Jordan, Pippen, 17 points, 7-time All-Star. Rodman, 1-time All-Star. Steve Kerr, 8 points, no All-Star appearances. Tony Kukoc, 14 points, no All-Star appearances.
Yeah. Like that stat in and of itself
really
tells you everything.
Want to weigh the 5 teams? And guess what? If you could take primes, run a 5-on-5 or a 6-on-6 in this case game, I'm still taking MJ. Go watch the Dream Team documentary on Paramount Plus. The biggest takeaway I took from it was LeBron. Remember, LeBron went and did the Olympics right before he went to Miami, and he used that to talk to Wade, to talk to Bosh, to come up with the Miami idea and to see if that could come to fruition. What MJ was undecided about doing the Dream Team. He finally did, basically as a scouting trip. I was never around these guys enough to see what made them tick, to see what got them going, what flaws they had and what I could exploit. The Dream Team experience and the practices was ultimately the reason Jordan beats Barkley in the 93 finals, because he realized what made Barkley and how he could exploit it. Without the Dream Team, the whole Jordan thing could be different, because maybe he couldn't have recruited as well. But right there is the key difference between LeBron and MJ. MJ went to find, deficiencies and exploit them. LeBron went to go find allies and form Avengers.
So what you're saying is Justice League versus Marvel, except in this aspect, DC is 10 times better.
Yeah, DC actually took the Marvel plan and actually fleshed everything out instead of just throwing a movie out there and hoping it would work. All right. So anyway, that's it for the inaugural episode. You can follow us on Twitter at BeardBookie. We are getting everything up and running. We'll have a Twitter running. We'll have a Facebook running, all that stuff. By the time we have the next show, we might actually have theme music, maybe a video,
Fun stuff to come, man.
Get all the bells and whistles going. But we're out there. The faces are out there. We're getting things up and going. So thanks for watching. Like I said, follow along on Twitter. You can shoot us your comments and feedback there. Again, for the Beard, Josh,